Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ruling Bogus. Present. Wagner,
Yes.
Painter,
Yes.
Davis, Cummings,
Yeah.
Rapp. Right. State, we're gonna just take a minute here and approve the minutes.
I make a motion, we approve the June 13th board meeting minutes.
I'll second.
Wagner,
Yes.
Painter,
Yes.
Cummings,
Yeah.
Ruling Bogus,
Yes.
4-0.
Okay, the bills, in your packet. Is there any questions? If not, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve.
Second.
Who's that, Eugene? Painter,
Yes.
Cummings,
Yeah.
Ruling Bogus,
Yes.
Wagner,
Yes.
4-0.
That takes care of that part of the business, and so the top thing on our list is, we have a special event permit with the St. Joe, pickleball tournament for the fall festival. So I actually will let Jeremy, kind of do a brief presentation. Everybody here has information in your packet, as far as pictures and things, that will be helpful, but I'll have Jeremy kind of give you or give just a brief break, about the tournament and then open it up for, and if anyone else wants to speak, if you sign in, you can speak and I give you 5 minutes, but as long as you're gonna be repeating everything over and over. So but anyway, I'll let Jeremy go ahead and be the lead speaker.
All right, as most of you know, Jeremy Yonka, kind of organizing or help organizing the pickleball group. I guess we'll just jump right into the permit and we can jump into the other stuff after that, probably. Yeah. Okay, so this group's been around for almost 2 years now. Pickleball's been growing crazy. Our group's up to over 180 people now. Several people reached out and we talked about having a tournament. So we came to the conclusion that we should maybe do one during the community festival. So our proposal is to do one the Saturday morning of the festival. With potentially maybe, depending on how many teams we get, maybe either doing Friday night and or Sunday afternoon as well. Or even have a Sunday as an alternate rain out. We'd like to do this at the tennis court because there is more room out of the sports complex, but the surface there is it's not ideal. With the cracks and the wind, and it's just not ideal. Several of us got together these past 2 Mondays, not last Monday, but before that. We actually chopped out 1 court. We can actually get 4 pickleball courts on the tennis court. A little tight, but with some extra netting and some other stuff, we can actually get 4 courts in there. So I think we can have a pretty decent turnout. There would be a cost to it. We're talking about 3 or 4 different divisions. Participant would get some kind of item, kind of either talking about a towel or maybe a pack or something like that, like St. Joe area pickleball open on it. We're hoping to do this every year, if not add additional tournaments, maybe in the spring and one in the fall. We've already talked to Wagner Sign, we're talking about getting some sponsorship, learn on the local businesses, getting the sponsor signs. My work is actually going to sponsor a sign. So we're looking to raise some money as well, to hopefully fund future pickleball equipment or anything pickleball. Depending on the number of people, 50 to 100 people maybe. The St. Joe Constitutional Pickleball Tournament had 32 teams, which is 64 players, and there was fans in the stands too. So that was well over probably 100 people there. In addition, they were doing a car wash and some pulled pork sandwiches or something, which I think went over really well. We've already talked to the One Spot owner. She is probably going to be there Saturday morning, set up at the pavilion. So if people want to get their energy shake, drink, and whatever. Unfortunately, no alcohol at this event. No heaters will be needed. The pavilion, we'd like to have that for the One Spot. We'd also like to have a basketball area as well, to set up a warm-up area. That way we can people can jump right into games and not have to warm up. As far as signage around town, again, Wagner's and local businesses. We'd like to get in there maybe Thursday night to be able to tape it off. Talk to Joe and some of the other people about what we can put down on the surface to not wreck it or leave any residue. There's some special 3-in tape that you can put down that's durable enough to play on, but yet when you rip it up, you can rip it up actually 6 months later and it won't leave any residue. So, but have that taped off Thursday night and then kind of reserved from there through the tournament, so nobody gets in there and rips it up and that kind of stuff. Because it will take some time to lay out 4 courts. As far as equipment, we've talked about the nets, portable nets. That's a whole nother discussion. We still have time, but we'll get there. And yeah, some pop-up tents. Parking may or may not be an issue, but I've heard in the past people just park on the grass anyway, so we could maybe have a designated grass area to park if that becomes an issue, or the people that are organizing a pickleball group, we could park a certain area.
There's a spot right here where you all could park.
Park,
and
walk
it's not
over.
that far. It's not
Yeah.
that far.
I didn't think of that. Yep. And yeah, and then you can kind of see on the map there where I kind of had stuff laid out. And then we'll also have the Boy Scouts helping out, kind of being runners, fall boys, that kind of stuff. So in addition, there's going to be prizes for the winners. There are going to be gift cards from companies or businesses here in St. Joe. So we're hoping that this will be a community event and it benefits all the community. And again, like we said, we hope to have these throughout the year, at least every festival, if not a couple times to the year. Yeah, our prizes will be gift cards to local businesses to help out. You have a whole community thing. So, and we're also trying to keep this local and small to begin with, just to see how it goes. But we kind of it's becoming kind of a bigger thing, like maybe what Champaign does, where they do Friday night, all day Saturday, and then sometime on Sunday. And I think that would help out the community quite a bit. So it'd be a lot of fun too. Anybody else have any? Quite a few people in the audience. Pickleball groups. So.
Like almost everybody.
I don't think he is. No. When you would.
About a great 30 seconds here to show you.
I think those are pickleball pro scouts. Oh,
If any of you guys, I know Terry and Max might have other questions answered. Okay, but anyway, if you want to go ahead and make the motion and then we'll see if there's any questions that need to be answered and, or go ahead and make the motion. Second, and then
I'll make a motion.
discussion.
You need the second first or?
Actually, there's always different ways of doing that. That's usually I always ask for questions first before we even make the motion, but the other day at the RPC meeting, they did it totally backwards. So I presume we're close to being right, whichever way we do it, right? So if you want to go ahead and ask for a question first, and then we'll bring a second.
So you just mentioned costs and then you went in and I didn't want to interrupt you, but I just want to clarify, there's not going to be any cost to the village.
Now, I mean, electricity for the One Spot. Maybe.
But we don't have to buy anything. Like, there's nothing that you're expecting from us, so.
No. I mean, Joe had talked about what kind of nets we'd maybe do, but I think that's not necessarily for the tournament, might be just, future. Yeah, so we can get enough portable nets, I think. Amy, did you reach out to Urbana?
I think we can borrow them, 2 of them from me.
Yeah. And then, several of us have portable nets, so.
Thank you. I second that motion.
So I guess we're ready for a vote.
Cummings,
Yes,
Wagner,
Yes.
Painter,
Yes.
Sterling Brothers,
Yes.
4-0.
So did you have, I know we had talked a little bit about the future of pickleball a little bit and talked about revenue ideas and different things, but might be a good time to talk a little bit about that and maybe get some people on board here on some of the things that we chatted about before.
Okay, so yeah, somebody from the pickleball group, you guys wanna chime in at any point, so. So before I get started, I wanna say that the pickleball group is here speaking about. We're not taking away from tennis, we're not taking away from the high school tennis team, the community, I talked to the tennis head coach. This is the third year that they're practicing at Atkins, they do not practice at the tennis court. If you know, the Atkins facility is where the U of I plays. There's very few high schools that get to play college level, and that's where they have their home events too, so. There's been rumblings about high school, and they do not practice there, they do not play there. High school team, we're not taking away from them, we're not trying to take funds away from the splash pad or soccer or anything like that, or any other facilities or any groups or anything like that. All we're trying to do is utilize this stuff that we have here in the community and use what we already have. I mean, the village has purchased 2 really, really nice pickleball nets. So, and some of the things that we're gonna talk about actually will benefit those groups too, if we kind of go down those paths, so. Just to give a history to, some people know this, some people don't, but I'm actually a design engineer for a sporting goods company in Champaign, Latania Sports Group, also known as Gill Athletics, Sport Athletic. I work on the basketball side, so I figure out how basketball equipment goes into facilities from high school to huge complexes that have 8, 9, 10 basketball courts in there, volleyball, pickleball, the entire middle school, that's all quarter, the batting cage is all over. So I've also visited these facilities and we've done interviews. So we talked to their coordinators, those kind of people. So they're like, hey, what's working? What doesn't work? You know, hey, we bought all these volleyball systems. Nobody plays volleyball. All they do is play pickleball and basketball, or vice versa. Or the number one thing we always heard was, we want more storage and wish we would have built this bigger. The one facility we went to, which is kind of in your packet, was just built as kind of almost a practice, kind of minor thing. But this whole retail section that they had is not pickleball. They had 600 people in one weekend play pickleball in a tournament. That was 5 years ago. So I can only imagine where it's at now. So yeah, as far as like what's in the packet there, if anybody wants to know what pickleball is, it's a great 1.5-minute video, but it's basically a combination of tennis, badminton, and ping pong. Started by 3 dads trying to get their bored children something to do. So even back in the 60s, parents were trying to figure out to occupy their kids. Fastest sport growing in America. 1 in 5 people play pickleball, so there's 5 people on the board. I'm gonna guess at least one of you, I know one of you plays pickleball. So chances are, I'm not gonna ask the crowd, because I already know that statistic, that's a little more than 1 in 5, so. But I kind of had some stats here, it's only going up, and it's multi-generational, young kids. The high school, I know, it's, there was a group down in Homer that has started, I'd say, or not Homer, Broadlands, I'd say they probably have 8 to 10 kids, aging 8 to 15, 16 that come out and play regularly. So it's just not our golden players. And it's just not my age or youth, it's from 5 years old to 100 years old. As I mentioned before, I started this group September 15th of 21, we're up to 180. Back there, talked about the facility. Maybe in the future our tournaments might have beer and pickleball, but if you are interested in beer and pickleball, there's places called Chicken and Pickle. It's like BW3 with pickleball courts indoor and outdoor. The nearest one will be St. Charles, which is east of St. Louis this fall, late fall, and then there's gonna be one in Indianapolis. There's also this facility that our company worked on called Pints and Paddles, that's in Minnesota. It's gonna have 74 self-serving taps, as well as 10 indoor pickleball courts, and then a private dining area they could also come out. So pickleball has grown by 159% over the last 3 years, almost 9 million players played last year. So with that being said, pickleball kind of isn't going anywhere. So I think our community's growing with it. I've seen it in Champaign-Urbana. The person that started up the Broadland group, they played one time with us last fall and he's been hooked. It's kind of like the Tetris effect. You play it once, it's simple, it's easy, doesn't take a lot of skill, and it's just a lot of fun. So they have like 35 members in their group. Homer is also branched off from there, and I think they've got a dozen or so. They've already had 2 pretty good turnouts. I know Villa Grove's doing something. They just had something where they're doing like sessions where it's $3 a session or 6 for 18 or something like that. It's really getting harder and harder from some of the other people I talked to in Champaign-Urbana to find courts.
So when you,
Yeah.
when you think of the future of pickleball, I know, currently you guys are set up to play at the sports complex. And I know, setting up the tennis court, you showed the design on how that can be done and, I could see using that multi-purpose tennis / pickleball and having that work. Whether it's painted or temporarily have it lined with tape and things, for the time being until, it was able to be painted, but ideally, do you think, I know Max has talked to the guys a little bit about, what it would take to have a spot there at Cove Park, is in you that play, do you see a preference between the sports complex versus Cove Park? The sports complex obviously has far more parking and space.
Yeah, so, I mean, I have like 10 suggestions, but yeah, so I mean, it's anything from researching the tennis to doing anywhere between 1 and 5 different courts, whether you just, the original proposal I know you guys showed me was just doing 1 pickleball court in the middle. But you could obviously do 4 pickleball. And in my line of work, I know lines is a big, huge thing, like some of the layouts I've worked in some of these facilities, you have pickleball, volleyball, basketball, you have high school, college, NBA, and it just becomes this big, huge mess. But there are contrasting colors, there's certain things you could do to where you have a full layout, or one of our group members has this kind of kit that he can take down, and it's got the 4 corners and some other stuff, and then you kind of tape between or even chalk it, so you can even just do like this kind of outline of it. And if you wanted to do temporary taping, you could put it down like, some painter's tape or something and rip it up afterwards, or just even, we did chalk, that's what we did Monday night, we just chalked it out. It was kind of nice, so when the ball hit the line, a little chalk came up, so you knew if it was in or out, which the ball, it is in if you could hit a line. But yeah, like what's up on the screen, I mean, I could figure out like, I know there's some question like, how are you gonna get 4 courts in there? Well, this is what I do. I can figure it out and took the measurements and everything. You kind of line stuff up nice and kind of use similar lines. So half of it is one way and half of it is the other way. So you're kind of using some of the lines from the tennis or pickleball and vice versa. So there are definitely those options. So there is that, you can do that, putting almost the exact same thing. Again, not taking away from the soccer that's next there in that grassy area right there. Would be kind of nice, because then you could have either 2 tennis courts or even 8 pickleball courts. So you could have a huge turn. Parking might be an issue. But then again, I didn't even think about the parking that's right there. Plus the wind. Wind is a huge factor. Now you can play in the wind, but if you don't have any kind of windbreaker and you're out at the sports complex, you're either barely tapping it and it's flying, or you're hitting it as hard as you can and it almost hits you back in the face. So you're essentially hitting a local ball. So the sports complex would be nice. Because yeah, you could put multiple courts. I just did a very simple thing here where it's 3 courts wide, which is plenty. You cannot go the long way right now. So the 2 courts going at the very top, that would not work. So you would have to go 3. So the proposal that you guys showed me, they were gonna extend 100, so the short side is 107. They were gonna extend it to 125 feet. I don't know if that was the whole thing, if it was just for 4 courts. I mean, you could put 4 courts, you could add 1 more court on the side, and then you would have 9 feet in between, which would be plenty of room. As far as out there, is it something we try to do ourselves? I've sent links and stuff to like how you can resurface it yourself. I don't think I have that skill level, but maybe somebody in the community does have that skill level to fix the crack and maybe level it, maybe try out 1 court and see how it works before, you know, you spend a lot of money for something that, you know, might not work out anyway. So, as far as like fencing, so, fencing, that's what, the place on John Street, which I think Luke went and looked at maybe. Did Luke go look at the John Street one? It's basically that, but half of that, so they do have 8-foot fences. And then they have what's called a windbreak or a wind barrier that can go all the way around it. It's just a very thin material that the wind won't push up against it and make it like a sail like we've done with our tarps out there. But the great thing about that is where I work, we provide that. You can get graphics on it. So we're talking about funding this stuff, we can talk about sponsorships, we can talk about advertisement. That'll be up there forever, 10 or 15-year warranty of, you know. Wagner signs is up there, or Rocks is up there, or the one spot, you know, that advertising could be lining that whole thing, so. And if anyone wants to spring, like Max Electric wants to buy a court.
You can name it.
He can name 1
You
court.
can name it. There you go.
Cummings Corner.
There you go.
Well, I know it's like anything else. I mean, we would love to get as much, you know, get you guys lined out with some nice pickleball courts better than, you know, I know what we have is a good start. At least was able to get you guys started in the community and able to have a place to play. And like I said, I don't see an issue with using the tennis court as is, with chalking, taping or whatever. And I think we can make that work as far as between the 2 sports, easy enough. But I think moving forward in the porch, I mean, this is an age-old thing that it comes around all the time with the requests that we get from whether it's baseball, softball, soccer, splash pad, the various different things. We don't have a designated source of revenue strictly for Parks and Recreation. So that always puts to where we have to pick and choose with our general funds. Sometimes it's a matter of potholes versus something at the parks, which is unfortunate. But I really would doubt that a park district taxing body would ever apply, especially in this day and age with the economy as it is. I know one thing that we kind of threw around for an idea years ago, we did, Tiffany, do you recall what year it was we did the stormwater referendum? Was that 2006?
Or 7.
Yeah, anyway, we did a referendum, a 0.5-cent sales tax referendum that was strictly for stormwater. So that money that comes in, and that way it comes from the entire, not just local St. Joe Village residents, but also outside of the community. So, which with our parks, it makes kind of sense because not just people in St. Joe use our parks. I mean, you've got Heather Hills, you've got Wilshire, you've got, you know, people in the area that come use the parks, but it would be a 0.5-cent sales tax on purchases made within the village. And it's worked out very well for us with the stormwater. It's given us a designated source of revenue that has helped us a lot with some of our stormwater projects. And we've been able to chip away at some of our stormwater issues that I'm really pleased about, that's making a difference. And I could actually see something like that working for our Parks and Recreation. It would be strictly for, I mean, it would be same thing. You would have your town hall meetings and things to promote it to the community, that this would be a dedicated source of revenue for Parks and Recreation. And then if it passed, then that revenue, and I don't know, we're averaging with the storm water one, I don't know what, 80,000 a year, maybe, something like that. And of course, as the community grows, we hopefully get more retail in the community. Of course, then those funds will just continue to grow. I don't have all the details. That would be something we'd have to work with Mark, various different people on how you go about putting a referendum, but that would be something that I could see having a core group. And that would not only just help the pickleball for your future, and being able to, afford or have some revenue to help for pickleball, softball, soccer, for everything, and to maintain those things once we get them in the community, because that's the other thing. I know just last year we had to replace the roof out of the pavilion, and between replacing the diamond or the bases and things for baseball, and doing the maintenance out of the pavilions, and just the mowing and all of that costs money, as you all know. So anyway, but having that source of revenue would be a huge plus, and it would be used for nothing other than Parks and Recreation. It would go straight, the minute we get it from the state, it's designated and it goes straight into that fund. And for, long after I'm no longer sitting here, or these people or whoever, it would continue to do that, because that's how it would be set up for the future. So that's one idea that I have. And of course, for something more immediate, to get things to happen a little quicker. But for sure, if we did a referendum type thing, we would need all of your support to make it pass, and to educate the people on what it's for. And that it has a very specific, need, a very specific thing that it would be used for. I think that's super important if you're, adding a 0.5-cent sales tax onto people's purchases, especially in this economy that we have these days.
And we do have people that come from out of St. Joe to play, people coming from
Exactly.
Ogden, Broadlands, Rantoul, Homer, Champaign, Urbana. I mean,
Yeah, and all those purchases made within the community that would go towards that fund.
Could I add a little bit of?
Yes.
You all can have a copy of this. I made it for anybody. If you want to take one, you can have it, but the number you need to keep in your mind that's easy to remember is over a 10-year period. The village has ran what's referred to as an operational deficit for Parks and Recreation of 1.6 million over a 10-year period. Meaning that 1.6 million is coming from the general fund that could be going to other ventures in the community, and then says we go into Parks and Recreation items, which is not saying Parks and Recreation items aren't valid or worthy. You just have to weigh it in the order of importance. So that's when the mayor talks about identifying a revenue source. You don't have to haggle with the other competing priorities in the general fund. It's its own item. There's no debate. So anyway, if you all are interested, you're more than welcome to have that. And you can look at it however you want to, but.
So I
oh, my account.
I just have a comment to make as well. So this board has gone through some strategic planning under the leadership of Joe, our new village administrator. And we're just trying to put together to be fiscally responsible for you all, to not be ridiculous with what we're doing, and to try to provide with what we can with what we have. So we don't want to spend more than what we have. We don't want to go into debt. We're, I would say, somewhat of a conservative board, and we're just trying to do things right. So in essence, in my mind, that's, I mean, I appreciate his feedback and I appreciate all his big spreadsheets and all that. And really, when you see that bottom line, it's just like, it kind of, I saw your face back there, sir. You're like, wow, 6 million. Who knew, right? I mean, until we see these kinds of things, we just don't know. So I appreciate your feedback and your support with this. And we want to support you. Obviously, we passed this and we're moving forward, so.
And I think anything we can do as far as pickleball goes without the city's help is better, because we can get donations or people helping out, or, I mean, hopefully nobody takes it the wrong way, but we don't have to pay prevailing wage to get it done. We can, because there's a lot of things I personally think going on in the city that people are taking advantage of cities right now, because you have to do a prevailing wage and it's hard to get work anyway, and the price tags are going up. So anything we can do without this city involved, I think is way better.
And I agree with
donations or
donation.
people helping or however we can do that.
If you're not the guy, you know, guy or
Right.
kind of thing. And yeah, when I saw the two proposals, like, holy smokes, one is like, there's gotta be something in between this and that. There's gotta be, you know, whether it's we start here with the ability, hey, over a couple of years, maybe then we expand it to this and, you know, something like that. And, you know, obviously with being in scouts and stuff too, we were always very frugal, very, you know, hey, we're just not gonna go out and buy 10 new tents, 20 sleeping bags. Like, you know, we're very mindful. And I appreciate that the board is that way too. Like, oh, here's a check for $1 million, go build, you know, chicken and pickles out. Which I didn't love it. That's what I. So, but you know, it could be a thing, you know, I noticed like with like the wheelhouse and other things with the rail trail coming, I mean, you know, people bike from Urbana to eat at the wheelhouse. Like I can see people, they can't get ports in Urbana, they'll either drive or bike here and play. And then turn around and back, like, you know, I bike to hit the ball when I can now, it kind of helps me loosen up and, yeah, so,
I do want to mention something about the sales tax. So we do business in 40 states right now. We ship to 40 different states, and every one of those states pays sales tax here in St. Jude. So they're funding the stuff in St. Jude.
So anyway, is there any other comments or suggestions or anything? I think Max and Jeremy, I know already have a good communication going, and that's what I would suggest is I know Max has already met with the public works guys and gone over a couple things too, but I you know, I would love to see a group help us to get together and organize and we can get the details on what it would take to do a referendum, but you know, we would need a core group to help promote that. But the other thing in the meantime, as far as, and I said, I think you're already have a good start as far as being very well organized. Jeremy's doing a good job, and I think, you know, working with Max, being
He doesn't
on.
need my help.
I know, I can get it. I'm scout leader.
You've been like the liaison to the board with Joe and Max, that, you know, if you had a source of donations or things and wanted to get set up, and then that would be a matter of, you know, moving it forward with the public works people, deciding on, you know, a location and how all that would play out. And then, you know, if you had something that was put together, of course, you would just bring that together in a packet and say, hey, this is what we've got, this is what we got donated, this is where we'd like to place it, and bring it back to the board. And, you know, I think that would be, you know, a great thing.
We have a lot of people in the group, like with the tournament, like everybody's like, hey, I can help with this, or other people are, you know, so-and-so set up an email account, doing this, doing that. So, you know, when you're pulling from that many people, a lot of resources that we can pull together, and a lot of people want to make stuff happen, or numbers.
I said initially when the sports complex was started, I mean, the donation of land thing was through the Woodard family to start to have the land to speak of. And then there was a group that was set up a 501c. It was the Parks Initiative group. Community Parks Initiative group that did a lot of fundraising when they did phase 1 out of the park. And they had an active group. And this is just another suggestion or idea. But they pulled together a lot of donations. At the time, the village was able to work on a grant to get things too. There's a lot of things you gotta have in place ready for a grant. So it's not as simple as like, oh, we're gonna write a grant today. But so there's things that you have to have in place to be prepared to write a grant. But if you're organized and you've got a layout and a plan, that's a big chunk of it too. But with the Parks Initiative group, yes, the donations that they brought in, it purchased a lot of things out of the first phase at the park. There, plus, some of the lights were donated to the, had a guy that was with Ameren, Illinois Power, one of the groups that donated the poles and everything. So
Real quick, while we're talking
Yeah.
about lights, would it be possible to get the lights at the tennis updated? So of the 4 posts, only 2 of them work. And of the 2 that work, 3 of the 4 work. So of the 8 lights total that are there, only 3 of them work.
I can talk with Mike about that and get back with you. We know we need to paint them, but we haven't. We just got, well, I'll talk about that and see.
The other two look a lot older that don't work. So I don't know if they were like 2 of them were replaced. They're like opposite of each other. So like the northeast one and the southwest one are the ones that work. And the other 2 don't work at all. And then the one bank that's in the southwest, only one of the lights works.
Okay, we'll look into it.
So
Yeah.
just if we were to, if people want to play tennis at night, it didn't look too bad. I mean, I don't play tennis, but I mean, it's a bright yellow ball. So when we played at night, if we played at night, is what we're trying to do, is to see if we could play and how it looked at night. For me personally, it's a lot easier to see the bright yellow football at night than any other, but just what are we talking about? Like, sure.
So anyway, but those are just some suggestions, but does anyone else have anything to add?
The one last thing I had, this would be the tricky thing, is would it be possible to have some designated times at the tennis court for pickleball? And then we talked about a schedule or anything like that. It could be just a simple sign. Because when it is windy out at the sports complex, I'm not saying the tennis court doesn't get used. I've seen people play it. But I've never seen 20 people show up at the tennis court to play. Our Saturday groups are normally around 20 people in 2 courts. So we're setting up 2.
We're out actually not growing.
Yeah, we're actually setting up 2 temporary courts, and I can show you, I've taken pictures, I've meant to include in the packet. So we're actually having people waiting on Wednesdays and Saturday mornings to play, or we go to 7 instead of 11 to get the games go pretty fast anyways, but
Right.
we've taped out 2 more additional courts at the sports complex. But that's just another thing that it is growing, but we do have some players that are able to play like throughout the school year, like when no one else is probably using it. So there's like a set time. So like in our group, we have a set 6 to 8 on Wednesday, 8 to 10 on Saturday. Pretty regular, pretty good turnouts. I know other people play at other times, but some people like to play early in the morning, so it's cooler, or if we played at night. So if there's maybe a time that we can kind of designate.
And that might be something we could investigate, because I know we kind of talked about that a little bit on Saturday. That we've seen other places where they have a sign, which the signs need to be spruced up and updated out there anyway, because you can't really see them, but to have, of course, you have your open time for open tennis or open pickleball, or whoever shows up, it's, you have to please yourself, but maybe it would, be something we could think about too, having certain times that the week and days, you know, and this is.
Because there's other kids, like my son, they play.
That way every-
Nitro ball,
Yeah,
which is used on tennis courts.
I think it's something we could probably look into, and, but it would be self-policed, you know, amongst the
I don't want to
players.
make the news and pickleball and tennis players.
So, I think that's something we can investigate into, to doing and then post like a sign. And then, like I said, because we don't want to, like I said, unfortunately, since we don't currently have a parks director or someone designated staff wise. So that always ends up falling on Joe and the girls in the office and, so I try to make their lives as simple as possible, even though Joe.
Yeah, well, what you're,
agree with me on
well,
that.
what you're talking about is gonna generate complaints. I'm not in favor of doing that while it's shared court. But you can do what you want and we'll deal with it, but I ultimately think you just, if you're in a football court, you don't have to debate. And, you know, so, you know, we're gonna end up policing it regardless. If you step into that, but we can do whatever you all want, we're happy to do whatever. But that will most likely be the result. You would like to think there would be debates, but
We can-
Like I said, I know it happens, so that's why I said this.
Right.
The one
And it could be such a thing, we could give it a try and if it becomes an issue, then, but until we get your pickleball courts as you would like to have maybe, let's see how we can make a compromise. If it becomes a huge issue, maybe we'll have to rethink that, but, yeah, I don't want Joe to have any extra phone calls and he gets already.
I mean, we could just make it a reservation. Like we do on all islands. And put it on the website and that way you have to.
Well, I think we maybe update the signs to say what hours you have pickleball and then.
I think that'd be the other thing is making sure we have it, whatever it is posted on the website so that people to avoid. calling
Yeah,
it
like I
check.
was saying, like what Savoy does, what they have, like. This is open basketball, this is open volleyball, this is open pickleball, this is open. And those are just like the set times and like the same on every.
Direct people to go to the website
Yeah,
versus.
and it's not to say that that's the one thing you can't do that, but if nobody's there. And you play and then somebody shows up to play nitro ball or whatever, it's like, okay, well, it's not pickleball time, I want to play nitro ball and. All right, we're done. Move along.
I'd say you've been there a little bit and somebody shows up to. Come
Communicate.
see you or whatever.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, and that's the way it is with just any sport, whether it's tennis or pickleball or anywhere, like you show up at a court. Kind of common courtesy not to monopolize it and be there for 5 hours and I'm gonna take a 10-minute break and then I'm gonna still keep playing on it. It's a park, like.
Well, and I think for any kind of a special event, whether it's tennis or pickleball. You know, if you have a planned event of some sort, you know, I think it should be kind of reservation, just like we do everything else in the park. So that, you know, it is understood by everybody that you guys reserved it for that period of time, so. Anyway, yeah, I think there's things that we can work through, but you know, it'll be something new and we just work through it and learn as we go and make improvements as we see if we need to, so. But yeah, as far as working together with any kind of donations and figuring out on some of the bigger stuff, whatever you guys can bring to us, we'd be happy to look at it,
Yeah, thank you.
right? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
Yes. If you want to go next door, Brock. I wasn't joking.
Okay, well, all right. The second thing I had on the agenda was And actually, since we don't have a full group here again tonight, I know, actually, it's kind of like we have different people that work on the last time, so maybe if we can get their idea on a little bit of a discussion on the solar. We're not gonna make any decisions on that, but Joe put in your packet the pros and cons in regards to solar.
Did you put in? So. If we buy it, then we get money back, right, through the Shines program and federal tax credits and stuff like that. You were saying that maybe because we're I'm gonna mess this all up, but a farm community or something, there may be more money that we can get back to.
In
Yeah.
the analysis that I gave you, there's the 25-year analysis side by side. The gentleman that we had put this information together, factored all that into the bottom line
Okay,
of the proposal. So,
okay,
all in all, buying it over a 25-year period, it shakes out, about $400,000 or $500,000 more. But from year 25 to 35, you could make significantly more because you don't have to buy the system out like you would on a leased option. So that's a decision point to consider. So that's the big pro of buying it, is that from year 25 to 35, you make the money because there's no purchase, you already own it. And then the leased option, the lower payout, but then I guess the pro to it would be there's no upfront debt. So you're just taking out a loan basically, and you're making the calculation that we want to have that dry powder, as I referred to it, to spend somewhere else in the coming years.
So you're tying up funding that we can use for infrastructure and whatever.
But that's just what you got to weigh is the risk reward. So based on what our consultant gave us, from year 25 to 35, that's when you really start to make the money back. But then, or where the two separate is year 25 to 35. And then, or if you're okay, that's what your decision point is. I'm trying to summarize it as easy as possible.
those numbers just don't sound right to me, but I'm assuming he's an expert and knows what he's talking about, but to me. I mean, the people I talk to is you could pay off this system in 2 years.
I'd be happy to share his information.
Yeah,
with you
no,
if you
yeah,
want to talk.
maybe you gave it to us already and I just didn't see it, or I was gone last week. Did you give it to us?
His email was in the packet, but I could actually, if you want, connect to you. If
Okay.
you wanted to talk to him and ask him
Because the
specifically.
guy I talked to said that there's a program, I think it's Green Penny, I'm not sure on that, but that they lend the money to municipalities or whatever, but then you get, within a year, you're gonna get a big payback because like through the tax credit stuff and then through the Shine program and stuff like that, you'll get a big chunk of money within a year that you can apply to that debt at that point. So you're not out any pocket money, and then with the money you're saving too, he said. He was looking at putting in a system, a huge system, probably bigger than what we're putting in for a joint friend of ours, and he said that he would get all his money back within 2 years, and then it's just doing nothing but making money.
Well, so what I could do is set up a time, maybe the three of us, or if you just want to talk to him one-on-one, you're more than welcome. And you can ask all the specific questions, but whenever I originally talked with him about it, I asked the question of, since we are government, do we not qualify for tax rebates?
Right.
And he said that the new law changed that, where before we wouldn't. But, because I can't remember the bill, but the bill was just. I can get that information for you. It's in his emails, and he must have, that he factored that into his analysis. However, what I'll do is I'll connect the two of you.
Okay.
And I gotta tell you that the financing on this is one of the driest things I've ever been through in my life. And so I'm happy to let you and him talk, and I mean, because if you got good questions, we want to make sure we.
Right.
But he seems extreme, he seems very knowledgeable.
Okay.
But what I'll do is I'll connect. with-
And he knows more on municipality than the guy I deal with on a daily basis, I'm sure. He was just, whenever I was mentioning to him we might do it, he was like, you've got to buy it. He said, it's a no-brainer that you want to buy it because you don't want somebody else getting all the incentive money and all that stuff. And it worries me when somebody comes in and wants to do this for a municipality and they, I mean, they give you a check for like 10, your next 10 years is what the check is for. Like mine, I'll get a check for like 18 grand by the end, you know, within a year of once mine's up and, you know, in my total system cost me 25 grand. So I mean, I get, and then that doesn't include my tax incentives and stuff like that. So, I mean, it's just, to me, I would think the bigger the system, the more money you're gonna get back, but I just hate putting the money like that in the hands of somebody and then all of a sudden they disappear and there's nowhere to be found and you're sitting there with a system and you don't even know what it's doing or whatever.
Well, I'll set up a meeting and then we can all, and if we can't have all of you, because that's what, but if anybody else wants to join in, you're happy to, but I'll get that set up and.
New business, we have the fiscal year 2023-2024 appropriation ordinance that we need to pass this evening. Is there any questions in regards to the ordinance? Everyone should have that in your packet. Do you have any questions on?
I make a motion that we approve the 2023-2024 appropriations as presented.
I'll second it.
Wagner,
Yes.
Ruling Bugus,
Yes.
Painter,
Yes.
Cummings,
Yes.
4-0.
Next item is we have a gentleman here this evening who want to give a presentation on storage unit proposal. So, and sorry, I don't have your names right in front of me, and I even though I've talked once and I've been introduced to you twice.
Sure.
Brad.
Brad and
Brad is
Brandon.
one.
Yep,
and
Brandon.
Brett, okay.
Yep.
So, but I probably could have guessed it, not pretty close, but anyway.
Right.
I'll go ahead and let you do the presentation to the board. Go ahead and explain what it is you want to do and where you're thinking about doing it.
Sure. Sure. So I want to introduce myself. I'm Brad Bankson. I've been part of the community for 23 years in Champaign. I've owned, I think, 5 properties in St. Joseph and I think 6 in Ogden, rental properties. I own over 100 rental properties. Brandon and I are also developing a self-storage in Champaign at I-57 and Monticello Road. We're about ready to break ground there. I've also been in banking from 1992 until 2019. So I've got a lot of experience in finance and real estate. Brandon, you wanted to tell a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm Brandon Moore, real estate investor since 2008. Remax agent in Champaign, do business around St. Joe like a lot of local agents do. And I have about 50 doors. Done a lot of the lending background that Brad's done, as well as I represent, majority of who I represent are investors trying to build portfolios of profitable assets.
So what are we doing with the boatyard? Our proposal is to purchase the boatyard and develop it into a self-storage facility that aligns the needs and demands of the community. We've entered into a letter of intent contingent upon your approval to move forward with the purchase. It's a 1.5 acre lot. The boatyard is situated on, really not suitable for retail, restaurants, hotels. It's a small size and irregular shape. You're going to have some spatial constraints, including parking options and potential traffic congestion. By removing the boatyard eyesore, which we all know that you guys have issues with, and create a modern storage solution, we can enhance the appearance of the city while addressing the pressing needs of the residents for self-storage. The second page is the picture of the boatyard. The boats in the front are taken out, but as you can see on the next page, the boats on the south part of the lot are not yet removed. There's a lot of boats. There's probably 20 boats. They're still overgrown with trees. The trees have grown around them. They've been there for a long time. It's going to be a pain to get rid of those. We're well aware that you guys are sick and tired of seeing this old boatyard. It is listed for sale. If we want to buy it and change it around. If you look at the next page, it's the drainage page. We got that from the CIS. On the left-hand portion, there's not a lot of elevation between the corner of the interstate on-ramp and subject property. I would imagine there's going to be quite a big retention pond that's going to have to be there, which is going to take up even more space. It's only 1.5 acres. I mean, I hope it doesn't take a half an acre, maybe only a quarter acre. I haven't talked to the engineers yet, but it's going to take some part of that property. Which gets me back to, suitable businesses for this site. I'm aware you guys want to have retail shops there, restaurants. It's just not big enough. I don't see it as big, definitely not big enough for a hotel. Maybe you could squeeze in a retail shop. I'm not sure. It's a small space. And why take the chance, right? If you're approving a retail businesses, a business, 50% of those within the first 5 years fail, and 80% of restaurants fail in the first 5 years. Self-storage has a failure rate of 8%. Next page is the neighborhood. As you can see, it's already a mixture of apartments, restaurants, retail, automotive shop, and self-storage. There's 2 self-storages there already. So it's not going to be an eyesore for the neighborhood. It's going to fit right in. Brandon, you want to talk about market demand?
Sure. So one of the first things we do first of all, we'd have to have a desire to want to go into a community. We do want to come into St. Joe. So one of the things I would do is I would come in and do a very detailed market survey. And in the process of that, literally boots on the ground in Ogden, St. Joe. And I measured every building everywhere, everything. What you find interestingly is that Ogden has about 15,000 feet of storage right now. For 721 people. We have 18,000 of storage or more than 5 times that. Whereas St. Joe's continuing to grow, that's the lack of storage is only going to get more apparent. Generally, what we look at in an affluent area, you're going to need about 10 square feet of storage per person living in your town. Right now, you're under 5. So you have about half what you need. That's just for the populations here. That's not counting population that's generally within 3 miles that may not even be counted in the 38 or 3888, whichever number you're going up. So definitely this is something that the town would use. Beautifying St. Joe. The benefits of self-storage is the ability to store extra household items, including family heirlooms, seasonal decorations, recreational equipment. And for instance, if you look at the Meadows, that subdivision is filled with homes of 1,200 to 1,200 feet. If you look at the Wingstem Drive, there's 10 houses there. I don't know these folks. Maybe you know many of them. I don't. I'm just looking from the aerial view. 600 has 2 cars parked on the street, 1 in the driveway, and has even an outbuilding in the back. 602, again, 2 houses in the driveway, 1 or 2 on the street, and additional buildings in the back. If you go all the way down Wingstem, of the 10 properties there that we're looking at,
8 of them have people parking outside the garage. They don't have enough room for their stuff. The houses are just too small. People here in St. Joe make a lot of money as compared to other places. They just don't have a place to put their stuff.
Well, there's a lot of people that have 5 kids, 4 kids that are driving, they don't have 2-car garage, so
Yeah,
there's quite a bit of it.
yep, yeah. I'm ready for the video if you're good. That's what it's supposed to be looking like. So specifically, what we're looking to do is the new self-storage facility will be constructed with net rentable space of 21,750 square feet with a budget of $2.25 million. A facility will have blue and white color with a fortress layout. There's an automatic entrance gate designed to resemble the fortress style layout. It will also have an enclosed fence for added security. In addition, we'll be implementing a well-designed drainage system. I understand that I've heard that there's been some standing water in that section. I don't know if it's true. I heard it in passing from someone. As part of the construction, the existing front building and 80% of the trees will be removed. There is a back warehouse that may or may not be salvageable. I don't know that yet. And then we will have security cameras, solar powered security lights. And then these are the still pictures of the property as you're entering the gate. And then a nice overview picture. We're still working on the exact layout of the interior. And then just in summary, again, our proposal is to purchase the boatyard and develop it into a self-storage facility that meets the needs of the community. We have a letter of intent, and we're looking for some direction from the board so we can move forward on the purchase agreement. Brandon, do you have anything to add?
So he's talked about a fence around, technically, we don't want it to look like a prison. So there'll be a little bit of fence. The fortress design itself, the buildings are their own fence. So where you don't have a building, so you have some sense of security, you would have a fence, but otherwise the building would serve. Also, you don't have these buildings opening to the outside the way they appear. That's just so people can tell what the building is. People in their mind, they have an idea of what storage looks like. So it gives them some idea. Those are potentially, even some of those will just be decals. So some of them will might be a QR code to say scan here to rent here, so things like that. We're very interested in your input. We're very interested in working with those, and let's see what your thoughts are. If there are any questions.
I will open it up to the board with whatever question you guys want to have for them. I know they're looking for kind of a straw vote to give them an idea on how they should move forward. This is something that would have to be approved for a special use permit in our commercial zoning that we have. So that's kind of what they're looking for before they go and spend a lot of money on the engineering and all that. Was trying to get an idea, because if you're, wouldn't be entertaining the special use permit, then of course, it doesn't make any sense for them to put a lot of money into a presentation. So this is, even though straw votes are always not set in stone, but it can give them a little bit of indication.
I really don't think we can give you any kind of. I mean, tonight, I mean, you're missing the one guy who would talk your ear off, so.
Yeah, I
Art's
don't-
got one, and Dan's gonna have a big opinion on it, so I really don't. Unfortunately, I didn't know those guys were gonna be gone, but I don't think we can give you a whole lot of direction tonight, but that's just my personal
And that's
opinion.
what I was gonna say, I'm not willing to do a straw vote.
Right,
tonight,
yeah.
Because
I
we
mean,
don't.
I know Marty and Dan are both have questions that I personally, we've had somebody come to us about storage before.
Yeah.
But it was in that other lot.
Yeah.
Is that you guys?
No.
No,
But I do like the layout that you have there, and I do feel like that is, I don't know, like you said, with having to put in the water thing, if anybody else could make good on, make that as nice, and it would be a lot better looking than what we have now. So I am not against it as much as I was on the other one. I'm not
Sure.
saying I'm in favor of it, but where they
Sure.
wanted to put the last one was right next to the monocles, and
Yeah, sure.
unfortunately, we don't have anybody using that space, but I feel like a restaurant.
I totally agree with you. That the restaurant fits well in that other space.
But I mean, as far as.
Of the monocles.
They're in that area, and I do agree that I think this town is lacking storage space, but,
I,
What's your thought, Dan?
my thoughts, and I have kind of already shared with them on the phone a little bit, when we talked about it. As we worked, having our commercial space, I've always been very disappointed that we had a lot of self-storage in some very desirable commercial space. That's how it's evolved over time. Some of them go way back, because we have some of those units that have been there for a very long time. This property is unique because it has been a problem for such a long time. And getting it cleaned up would be a huge plus for the community and for the commercial area in itself by having it cleaned up. Yes, I had my hopes that we, would get some kind of retail or something like that that would bring in some sales tax dollars to the community. But I do kind of agree with Max that the two different properties, one does seem like it would be a better fit for a restaurant or something like that versus this property in itself because of some of the drainage concerns and the location and how it's the layout does make it a little trickier for maybe some of those other commercial properties. So I guess I'm a little bit like you. I'm not totally against it. I'm disappointed because once again, it's like, oh my gosh, we've got more storage units in our commercial district that, is disappointing for the community and the sales tax aspect of it. Would it be wonderful if everybody who had their garages full of stuff would go rent a storage unit and clean out that stuff and park at their cars and maybe get some of the, because we do have parking issues on our streets that we hear about all the time, but I don't know if that would change that or not. Some people just like to have their stuff in their garage, and park all over the place. But anyway, so I'm not going to say that I'm 100% totally against having this in this location. Yes, I wish you were coming to us with something a little more exciting than storage units.
Fines
but-
and battles are all behind it.
I'm
So,
How about pickleball courts?
There you go.
Well, you mentioned the which lights
No,
in here.
fines and battles.
So, but
Can I ask a question?
yes,
Other than the water retention and all that stuff. What is the upside of somebody buying a storage shed to put on their own property opposed to, and doing it, whether they buy it outright or rent to own, opposed to renting a storage unit they'll never ever get back?
That's a great philosophical question. We find that self-storage is a great product. People use self-storage. They'd rather have their stuff. I mean, when you get the furniture from your grandma and you can't get rid of it because you'll cause a divorce with your wife, you're gonna store it, and you might not want it in your back garage, shed in your own yard. You want to put it somewhere else. We also have people who are moving from place to place, and they need a place to someplace to put their belongings as well.
From a standpoint of adoption, 1 in 11 households in America have self-storage units now. That number has only grown. If it wasn't for self-storage when we went into COVID, and you suddenly had to have an entire room of your house cleared out to do school, to do work, to do whatever, it would have been a lot more of a struggle. But what we've learned is that people need the space, whether they can put it in their yard, even that. I'm in Monticello. There's an ordinance, you can basically have one of those buildings, that's it. And traditionally the yards are bigger, in Monticello than they would be in a Savoy or a St. Joe. A lot of the yards are smaller. So even to do that, to have one is difficult for a lot of people.
Okay, no, I understand that. And what's your rate on repo rates and all that stuff when they neglect to pay and all that stuff?
Well, that's going to largely be a function of the community and people's credit worthiness. That's really up to them to pay or not pay. Generally, in more affluent areas, those numbers would be lower.
And I can tell you, as a landlord, I rent to people with 550 credit scores, and my delinquency rate's 5%. So I'm not seeing that it's going to be a delinquency above 5%. It's probably going to be 2 to 3%.
Okay,
So-
thank you.
Oh, sorry. Are you done, Luke?
Yes, I am.
That worked well, didn't it? I would like to see something different in that property. I get what you're saying. I don't think that we're in a position to make a decision tonight with our other people not here. So, I just wanted to say what my part was. And, Gary's still out. I was not for the other. I think we have some more discussions to have and what have you, and that's how I feel. So.
Great.
Anything to add to that? Well, I'll tell you what we'll do is when we get everybody back here, hopefully at our next meeting in July, if you could leave these packets here for everyone to see, this is art on.
No.
Not on? Okay.
We'd be happy to present again
So-
for the folks that are not here.
That would probably be great if you wanted to, but you
Yeah.
wouldn't have to. We can.
Yeah, I see. If you want to come back, you're welcome to come back, but.
That's fine. We're committed to St. Joe. St. Joe's a great community.
Yeah.
We want it here. I own rental properties here. It's even hard to buy rental properties here. It's tough.
Is there any way you can leave those packets? So
Sure. Yeah.
Yes. I can be to the ones that aren't here and they can go ahead and have their questions lined up for you. And if for some reason we can get those questions for you, that you don't have to be here, I'll work, we'll work through Joe on that.
Okay.
And
And
let
we
you know.
did send it electronically, so it can be emailed.
Yeah,
Well,
that might be an idea too, to do a Zoom thing, so, but anyway, but yes, if you could leave, at least 3 or 4 of those, here with
Sure,
us.
absolutely.
And then we'll kind of discuss it amongst our board here a little more and to give you a better indication on what they might be thinking on that.
Okay.
I will say that we have this with a letter of intent. There is at least another party that has a letter of intent. So it is a little bit time sensitive in that sure, we could go through with the contract, tie up the property. And go through this for several months, and then when you say no, and at which point we simply terminate the contract. And you're back where you're at this winter. So I wanted just to say we are sensitive to that as well.
And I don't know if the other party who has an offer in has come to the board.
No.
Do you want to tell them any details on what you know?
I've heard some talk that it's an event planner for to do events, maybe weddings.
Thank goodness you didn't say what they had no, but they.
So,
Um,
but that could be wrong.
That is an ordinance, we do that.
Yeah, so, but under that circumstance, I think you could imagine that they're gonna wanna utilize the front building, for instance. And let's say that business goes great, fantastic, let's say it doesn't. Then you're stuck with that building again. You know, we're gonna eliminate that building for certain.
The default rate on self-storage is ridiculously low. It's not gonna default.
I just want to state again that, we had somebody approach us about one. And we
Yep.
shot it down. So
Yep.
I don't want you to feel like taking it personally, like.
Not at all.
If we would vote against it, we just had bigger visions and hopes, but will that ever happen? That's the thing we have to weigh.
Yeah.
Because we had to say no, and then it sits for another 10 years of
Right.
the way it looks right now.
I've been in countless loan committees and on boards myself. I understand where you're coming from. It's nothing personal. Hey, we're just trying to, we have a proposition for you guys and hopefully you see the vision and it's good and
Very nice. So,
and you guys win. I mean, the boatyard is disgusting
yeah.
and, you know, we want to be a part of that. And I just don't know what other business is gonna go in there with the size limitation. Even for us, 1 acre, you know, 1.25 acre, that's not a lot to work with. I mean, we need 4 acres.
Do you have a name that has still boat in it so we can reminisce about it?
The old boatyard.
Thank
Okay, all right, thank you so much. Appreciate it. Thanks.
those are for Joe and
Okay.
get those distributed.
Thanks
Right,
so much.
Joe, do you have any additional updates to your report in the packet?
Any questions?
I love that everybody's going. That's awesome. Absolutely,
What you invest in.
absolutely. Thank you.
So, all right, Mark,
My report's on the agenda.
all right, perfect, thank you.
Mine as well.
Oh, very good, very good. Public Works has, a written report in your packet. Luke and Mike, do you have anything to add to that?
No. No, not at this time.
All right, thank you. The only thing I was gonna, bring up, I want to remind everybody, the community that although the time has expired on the yellow cards to opt out of the home field electric, you still have the 800 number that you can opt out at any time. Some people, I think, was a little confused on that if they didn't turn in the yellow card, that they could not opt out, but you can opt out at any point throughout the contract.
So is it savings to Ameren? Are you saying it is a savings from Ameren rate? It's 25%.
Well, home field is who it automatically goes to. You have to opt out if you want to go back to Ameren. Ameren has a cheaper rate. You'll save about 10% on your electricity if you stay with Ameren, but you'll have to opt out of home field. So I know that makes it confusing, but usually it works for us the other way, but this time my recommendation would be to go ahead and opt out if you want to have the extra savings on your electricity. But
And I was gonna thank Nora because she posted that and I was in Paris and I called up and looked it out.
Back to that phone number. I did attend the meeting a week ago, just to make sure it wasn't going to affect us in a negative way. Ameren is doing some upgrading to their grid. That will be coming, but the main line that they'll be updating is actually, it'll actually run through, if you see the double poles that are out there by the baseball diamond out west of town. That whole line is going to be updated. There will be public meetings and things for those outside the community that might go through their property. I wanted to make sure it didn't adversely affect anything within St. Joe. It's actually, even for those that are in that sight line, they're gonna be removing the double pole thing down to a single pole. It'll be a little bit larger pole, but it does look like it'll be a nice improvement even for those that it will affect. They will have public meetings that will be coming up in reference to that for anybody who's outside the village limits to be aware of, in case they are concerned about that. But it will be a nice improvement to help us guarantee that we have reliable electricity coming our way. So other than that, I don't have anything else. Am I forgetting anything? So, trustees, do you have anything?
Oh.
No?
Motion to adjourn.
Motion to
Motion.